It's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Welcome back to the Aquatic Industry Insider. I wanted to pop on here to chat briefly about Aquatech Amsterdam because I've had a number of questions about why I went. Is it worth going? If you've been here before, you know this is not my first time reviewing a conference or trade show. I like to share my experience so that you can decide for yourself if it is worth the investment. Aquatech Amsterdam is definitely not a show geared towards aquatic professionals in the sense of swimming pool operations. This is a show I first heard about through targeted Instagram ads because of the profile of Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. It describes itself as the world's leading trade exhibition for processed drinking and wastewater. Nowhere in that description is there anything about swimming pools for those of us on the recreational water side, but water is water. The process by which we move it, pump it, filter it, chemically treat it, all of those elements are the same, whether we are talking about wastewater, drinking water, swimming pool water. I was semi-curious to see what this trade show was about, particularly because there is no membership fee and no admission fee. I was not planning a special trip to Europe to see this trade show, but when my ISO meetings for drowning detection technology announced they would be in Oslo, Norway, and Aquatech Amsterdam was within a week, I decided to do some number crunching and see if it would make sense to go. I definitely would not fly across the ocean just for this trade show, but I think there was some value going from Oslo because the cost was not substantial. When I was looking at flights to go from Calgary to Oslo, a return trip for my ISO meeting was going to be about 1,600 or 1,700 Canadian. However, if I did an open jaw or a multi-leg flight where I would go from Calgary to Oslo to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to Calgary, it actually dropped the price of my flights substantially to $1,210 Canadian. That was my threshold for deciding if I would go to Aquatech because it was within the range of a $500 savings expense. So I would save on the flights, but then I would spend money in Amsterdam. I did end up spending about 620 Canadian for the hotel and then 250 Canadian on the train, as well as meals at restaurants. Now, all of that did not go to Aquatech. I only spent one afternoon at the trade show, so I would say it was about $1,000 to be in Amsterdam for 3 days. Aquatech was hosted at RAI Amsterdam, which is a very big convention center in a suburban part of Amsterdam. You can take the train there directly from Schiphol Airport. The trains in general were very easy to navigate. You can either purchase a ticket or you can tap off with your bank card or your phone. Aquatech is organized into worlds, is what they call the different areas. They are industrial and corporate water world, digital world, clean water world, wastewater, and resource world. Within that, there were also pavilions grouped by country. So Korea zone, a Taiwan zone, a China zone, a France zone. And then there were also specific pavilions. So I'm seeing Blue Tech Pavilion, Circular Economy Pavilion, Digital Water Pavilion, Water Quality Pavilion. And then there were also lounges specific to entrepreneurship, venture capital, innovation, and that sort of thing. The show took place from Tuesday, March 11th to Friday, March 14th. I thought about my experience at IAPA in Orlando back in November. Some of you might remember. I learned my lesson not to go to a trade show in the first few hours after it opened. I had some other work that I had to get done on Tuesday, March 11th. I finished up that work around 2 o'clock, got on the train and showed up at the RAI around 3 o'clock. And it was not busy at all. Come to find out in speaking to a few of the exhibitors that it had never been busy on Tuesday at the RAI. So it sounds like I would have been just fine to show up at 10 a.m., even though I would not have had enough to keep me busy the whole day. I walked the different trade show halls. It is quite a large trade show, and I want to be clear that I did not do detailed walkthroughs of each booth. I did not talk to that many suppliers, that many producers. I did not investigate or ask for information for a lot of products. I was mostly there to see what's out there in the water world that we don't necessarily have in pool up. I am a very curious person, and it was very interesting to see the scale of some of the systems, such as chemical metering or monitoring, remote testing, controlling. All of that exists in these other water treatment divisions, but on a much larger scale, on a much higher deliverable, like public health and safety, but also to see what kinds of innovations are out there. I shared some of the innovations I was most interested in an Instagram post. So, for example, there were these soft reservoir tanks by a French company, what they described as a soft cistern. I thought that was really interesting. I saw this tool to raise manhole covers. I saw several chlorine generators from different companies. There was a lot of exhibits and displays that were very interesting for me as a person to learn about areas of water treatment, water processing, bacteriological testing. All of that I don't have a huge background in. So I found that very interesting as somebody who doesn't mind talking to people, asking about products, writing down brand names, looking at products on the internet. But I would say that there was relatively few swimming pool producers there. The big brands such as Myron, Ecolab, Xylem, formerly Fluidra, is not exhibiting any of their pool equipment. They're exhibiting their much larger systems. European trade shows are quite different from North American trade shows in terms of the dress code is much more formal. It's not business casual. So suits and ties, dresses and tights, although you can wear whatever shoes you like because you're on a massive trade show floor for hours. And one of the other main differences is Europeans are not big on freebies. I think they're a lot more environmentally conscious. There is not endless notepads, squishy balls, pens, anything like that. The only freebies I saw were cappuccino. So the smart European brands hired a barista. They have a cappuccino machine. I did talk to an Estonian company. Their manufacturing base is in Israel. They make a lot of filters. Good information. And the second freebie I saw was the trade show did have water bottles stamped with an Amsterdam outline. I actually saw these same water bottles for sale at a museum the next day, so this must be a very popular souvenir. Amsterdam is known culturally as a place with very clean drinking water. It is a country with a very strong connection to water, with the canal system, agriculture, development, and so I really appreciated these water stations with these free water bottles. I thought it was also really interesting that the trade show floors were really classy. They had bouquets of flowers. They had your typical chairs and tables, maybe sofas and display items, but it was a lot more minimalist. People were a lot more serious talking about the product. It was not a big schmooze fest. And I did also notice that when we got into the final hours of the trade show and the alcohol came out, it was not your cans of beer and coolers. It was very much bottles of wine in chilled buckets with stem glasses. So my takeaway from Aquatech Amsterdam, very interesting trade show, not my area of expertise, not my area of work. They have 3 shows every 2 years, one in Latin America, South America, one in Europe, and one in Asia. This particular show will be back in Amsterdam in 2027. I will say it was a very, very easy location to get to if you will be in Europe. The RAI itself is a beautiful facility. It's well organized with lots of restrooms, food service outlets, tons of connections by train within the city of Amsterdam, as well as connecting to other parts of Europe through Schiphol Airport. Super easy to get to. I am very glad I did not stay in the RAI area. I looked at Airbnbs and they were very expensive, very depressing. Room in somebody's house. It's very easy to take the train from the airport to 20 downtown Amsterdam. The only reason I didn't stay in downtown Amsterdam was the cost. And in hindsight, after spending 3 days in Amsterdam, I did really appreciate being out by the airport where it was a little quieter. My hotel room was a little bigger for half the cost and a lot more amenities. So a little bit more detail than maybe you need. but did want to give that update on Aquatech Amsterdam. I do continue to invest in my own personal development by following my intuition in terms of what I find interesting and where I want to invest those PD dollars. I understand that's not possible for everyone, but I did want to give this quick rundown of Aquatech. Thanks so much for being here, and I will catch you in the next video.